Okay, thanks for joining us again. And I'm here with Joel Brown, who is another artist here at the Festival of Arts. And Joel's work is different from everybody else's. He does a lot of fine art photography, a lot of nude stuff, but he does his photography with one of those big film square boxes that you have to carry and expose really archaically and whatever. But I want to introduce you to Joel. Joel, how are you today?
Fine, thank you.
Okay, so why do you do your photography with that big square wooden box?
Well, almost 50 years ago, in college, I was using the 4x5 format view camera and fell in love with that. And I really noticed how it slows things down. And when I moved up to the 8x10, it really slowed things down. And it was, the weight was tremendous, and I really don't go far from the car if I'm going to do any kind of landscape. I'm pretty near where I parked. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a reason for that.
It's it's heavy, it's cumbersome, but I love the results you get with an 8x10 negative. I have a full darkroom at home with a 4x5 enlarger and an 8x10 enlarger sitting side by side. So I develop all my own film, strictly black and white. Do my own printing, matting, dry mounting, everything is in-house, one-man band.
Wow,
Yeah.
nice. And the question always comes up is that how many of these can you take in a day?
I have probably 12 film holders, so that would give me 24 shots, and then I would need to look for a dark room to reload, which they're usually not around. So usually 12 shots a day would be my max.
So how do you know that if you're going out and doing landscape photography that you didn't screw something up and 12 of those photos are wrong?
You don't know. There's no way to know until you get home and develop the film, and then you see double exposures because you forgot to flip the film holder in the back. So you've got two images on one side and the other side is blank. And so you go through a lot of film. I try to be as careful as possible. I try to eliminate as many accidents as I can, but they still happen. They still happen.
Okay, it seems really difficult to me, being in the digital world and coming out of film, to actually go back to retro. And, you know, you don't see many photographers now doing what you're doing. So...
Well, I'm not going back to retro because I never left it. I don't own a digital camera other than my iPhone. I'm just still practicing the way I learned it nearly 50 years ago. So I don't really feel like I'm doing anything different. I think in reality, people left that realm and went on to digital, where I just stayed there and continued.
With a 8x10 negative, how big can you actually blow those up?
I can only go 16x20 because then my enlarger hits the ceiling in my house. So
you're limited by physical conditions in your darkroom. But if you were to outsource a file that big...
They say it's a equivalent of a 1 gig image. So I don't know how large you can make it.
Oh, that's big.
It's pretty big.
It's big.
It's
that's really big.
Yeah.
That's big. Now, I know that you do fine art nude photography. Have you always been doing nude photography, or is that something new?
I've been doing it for a long time, but there's 30 years of my life where I only did landscape, and there's not a soul in my pictures for 30, 35 years. And then something clicked, and I decided I enjoy looking at the landscape, but I no longer wanted to photograph it. And I started with the 4x5, doing some nudes and portraits, and then moved up to the 8x10.
Okay. What about doing nude portraits in landscape?
You know, it kind of started off that way, and it didn't feel right. so I kind of stopped doing
Right.
that.
I mean, we have another photographer that we do a lot of work with, Craig Colvin, and he does a lot of nude out in nature shots. But I think it would be almost impossible to carry your equipment into those locations because he climbs up inside mountains and on cliffs and all that sort of stuff. So, what's been the biggest obstacle that you're facing nowadays in producing your artwork?
I would say the price of the materials. Everything is still available. I've given up on Kodak because they just got way too expensive. But
Right.
Ilford Film out of England has continued to produce the film I need. So it's still there, it's just more expensive.
Right.
And chemicals are constantly changing. So once I've figured out my development information, then that all of a sudden that developer is no longer available. I got to retest
Right.
and come up again.
Right, and there's a chemical shortage, there's a paper shortage, there's a shortage of everything nowadays. Now, being an artist and obviously having your own style, what kind of, if you get criticism or feedback, how do you handle that?
I love criticism. I love feedback, but I really love criticism because it does make me think. And more than once, I've actually gone to the other person's view. You're right. I could change something and probably become a better photographer. So, yeah, I'm all for it. I don't get much criticism here at the festival, but I do. I get a lot of conversations, which is
Nice.
It's wonderful.
Right.
It's just wonderful.
Have you ever shot color?
No.
Never.
No.
So you've been black and white from the beginning.
Yes.
Why haven't you shot color?
Well, back in the day, if you shot color, you'd always send it out to a lab. You wouldn't develop your own color. It's too difficult at home.
Yeah, it's complicated, expensive.
In a home
and-
darkroom.
yep.
So, I knew from the beginning I liked black and white. I liked working. My whole part of being a photographer is the darkroom. If I didn't have a darkroom, I don't know if I would even be a photographer anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how attached I am to it.
Okay. And what have you learned today that you would have told yourself 10 years ago?
Slow down and go ahead and make mistakes and learn from them. Try
Right.
not to repeat them, but take that opportunity, that mistake, and learn from it. And my trash can in my darkroom is so full of mistakes, and I've got so many blank pieces of film or double exposed film, and most of those, fortunately, are from a few years ago.
You need to empty your trash can out more than a few years ago.
There you go. Yeah.
So, one of the things that's always interesting to people that we've been talking to and artists that we actually know is, how do you know when you are finished? That what you have in front of you is the final piece that you're happy with?
I have so many more limitations as to my chemicals, my paper and film, that I'm within the parameters of a fairly narrow ability to make changes. Unlike digital, where that would be my question to you. How do you know when you're done with a digital file?
Yeah.
There is no end.
No end.
You have to make that decision.
Yep.
I make the best print I can, and I will find rather quickly whether I'm wasting my time on this negative, and I will just stop printing it and say, no, I'm not going to get it.
And we find a lot of artists, and ourselves included, that since we look at things on the monitor, you don't, you're actually looking at it differently, that we like to walk away after Photoshop for a day or two and re-examine, re-look, and come back and see where we're at. So your media is very different to that.
But I work in the same sense that I will make a test print, put it on the back of my couch so it leans up against the wall, and I'll walk by it for a couple of days and maybe make decisions. Oh, I'm going to change this, change that.
Okay.
And then go back in and make a final print based on what I saw over those 2 or 3 days of just looking at it.
Right. Now, obviously, you're doing archivable paper, acid-free, all of those things to make it like master photography was produced 20, 30 years ago.
Right.
That is your goal. So
that's the way I learned it.
Yeah.
And that's the way I've been doing it ever since.
And personally, I don't know anybody that is still doing what you're doing. So what would you say to the younger audience that is watching this about learning what you do, and what are the rewards and what are the things they should look for?
Well, I would say to any young people, which I've spoken to quite a few here, if they can get into a film class and get some darkroom experience, even if they don't go beyond that and then they go to digital after that, you'll learn so much using film that it'll probably make you a better digital photographer.
Right.
And if you want to stay with the film, you know, there's avenues out there to follow.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's the difference why did you do photography and not painting or any other form of artwork? What is it about a photography that you love?
You know, I grew up with like Ansel Adams landscape and Edward Weston up in Carmel, Imogen Cunningham. Those people were the ones that influenced me in the early days as I was just taking my beginning photography, just to see if I liked photography. I had no idea.
Yep.
And it just hooked me. And I had been in college taking an auto shop class, and right above the class was the photography class, and these students were coming down taking pictures of these cars that I was working on. And I went upstairs once and said, what's this all about? And I never looked back.
Right.
Never.
So is it safe to say that you still love it as much now as you did before?
Yes, and I understand it more, but I'm still learning, and I'm just as excited now as I was when I was 20.
So one thread that we see a lot is artists follow their passion. Whether it's photography or painting or ceramics or anything, follow your passion, and if that passion then changes, then you do something else, right? So you've been doing this for a long time and obviously very good at it.
Well, my passion changed a little bit from landscape to the figure.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm still using the camera and stuff, but it's a different set of rules.
Yeah.
You know, a rock and a tree are not going to move while you're focusing, but using this guy behind me, you have to be aware of your model who's trying to hold a pose for you for a good minute and a half while you're setting up. So it's the models are working just as hard as I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you've got my sympathy and condolences in doing it, because I do not have the patience at all. So what do you see yourself doing? Okay, you've gone from landscape to fine art, nude photography. What do you see next?
I'll probably do the nude photography until I'm done being a photographer.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my passion is there. I've met so many wonderful people who have never posed nude, and they are trusting me to work with them, and that's the highest compliment anybody can pay me. Is
Right.
They look at my work and they say, "Can you do something like that with me?"
Nice.
It is,
Nice.
Peter. I can't tell you how that makes me feel.
No, it's gratification that you get for doing an outstanding work as a master photographer. So if you want to get in touch with Joel, where can they get in touch with you?
JoelBrownPhotography.com. It's a brand new website that just went up maybe 2 weeks ago. It right now kind of looks like a parking lot of photographs, but I'm trying to get it all together, and then that's the best way.
Okay.
It's got my email and address and phone number and everything on there. Yeah.
Lovely. So thanks again for tuning in and watching. Thanks, Joel.
Peter, thank you very much.
Great, thank you.